Okay, cool.
So we're back here with Texas Slim. Welcome back to Ranching Reboot, Slim.
Hey, Brian, good to see you, man.
Yeah, we're just kind of a little follow up to our conversation we had in real time about a month ago. I'm going to try to get this turned around and get this released real soon. So oh man, a lot has changed in the world since we last spoke. Um, Russia kind of invaded Ukraine. A lot of people have become really, really aware that their input costs are going sky high. Um, and it's been a strange month, hasn't it?
Well, it seems to be right on schedule from everything that, us, a few people, especially in the Bitcoin world, I guess, or just, people that do analysis and research. It's right on schedule. It's amazing to watch it play out and to see, the narrative that is forming around Russia, Ukraine, inflation, gas, feed, fertilizer, monetary value, debasement. It's all coordinated in a certain way that, I think I first started writing about most of this back in September. And I've always said I don't know the timeline here, but this is definitely going to play out.
I mean, and the inflation we're seeing now has been more or less inevitable for what 14 years since the big crash of 2008,
Sure.
and the
Yeah.
Federal Reserve started the quantitative easing. Like,
Yeah, most definitely. Everybody thinks this is a new thing. It's just, it's time to pay up, really.
and what really set it off was 2 years ago when they started passing the massive $1 trillion coronavirus spending bills. Didn't they just pass another 1.2 or
14, 14.
1.4?
As far as the spending bill, it was it was right under 2 trillion, I think, some 1.7 trillion. I can't remember. I quit paying attention.
Oh, that's just
So relative. It's just printing money at this point in time. It's just, turning on the printers is what they do.
and inflation is past 10%.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll tell everybody a little trick that I learned. And I forget the name of the formula. And somebody's going to say, well, it's 72, not 70, but I always use 70. So you take the inflation rate divided by 70. So if it's 10% inflation, divide that by 70 gives you 7 years. That's the
Mm-hmm.
doubling interval. So that 10% inflation means the cost of everything is going to double in only 7 years. That's scary. Like, that's really scary. And what we've seen, I think what we're seeing, there's a couple year lag in between printing of the money and when we actually start feeling effects of inflation. How much worse is it going to get?
What happens, I think, right now, what happened in 2008 was a major reallocation of assets on certain levels. Whenever we have a debasement of the dollar, like happened in 2008, the allocation reallocation was property, it was mortgage, it was housing. This time I see, as far as we're getting debased again and inflation's really kicking in, we are having another asset reallocation in society. With COVID, the asset reallocation, one of it is your personal space. And we knew that because, everybody locked themselves up willingly for the most part. They had no problem doing that. What's going to happen they've said it, people are going to own nothing and be happy with that. As far as the asset reallocation going on now, it will be more on a personal level. It'll be personal space, personal decisions, the types of food. Let's look at beef. I mean, why are they manipulating the beef prices to where it's going to be like caviar? That's going to price people out of their lifestyles. What happens when they do that? They get more dependent on the government. So as much as they can basically reallocate any asset that an individual has right now, they're going to go for it. And you're having certain laws with automobiles. How about gas? How many people will not be able to afford their vehicles now? That in California, $7 to $8 a gallon, and those people that need those vehicles to work, well, guess what? They're going to be able to reallocate assets in a way on business levels, on individual family levels. So the list is long and people are going to feel that. And I believe we're just at the beginning here. This is it.
It's strange to think that some people might be looking at a situation now where they cannot afford the gas to go to work because they work so far away from home. Like it just costs too much to drive there anymore. I- I'm thinking like, you know, go to work and work for 25 cents an hour all day just so you can afford the gas to get home. And that's, 25 cents an hour is what you end up putting back in your pocket at the end of the day after you paid your fuel and everything else.
Exactly. And you think about that, where does that play into? Well, it played into the COVID narrative where, people willingly lock themselves up in their homes. And, what was the reporting on that? Well, we're saving the climate if we stay home. They're going against energy, they're going against oil right now. So isn't that a form of, reclaiming the energy market in a way that they can control the individual?
I could see that. I can see that. And, I was actually having a conversation this morning. Okay. So people are freaking out about fuel prices right now. Okay. $4.50 for a gallon of diesel. Let's reset the clock and let's think about February, January of 2020, right before COVID hit, or before
Yeah.
we heard about COVID. I think it was already here in November. That's beside the point. Fuel prices were, they were way up in the threes, 380, 390, I think was what I was paying for diesel that winter.
Mm-hmm.
350 was about what I was paying for gas when we were driving around on the conference circuit. So, $4, 450 fuel, that's not that far out of line of where we should be if we would have continued on that curve. But when everybody shut down for COVID in 2020, that created what the guys in the energy industry would call demand destruction, right? And that and that had ripple effects all the way up and down the oil industry. And now we cut production so much because it wasn't necessary 2 years ago. It takes time to spool that back up. And I guess that can kind of lead us into talking about the China or the Russia Ukraine situation a little bit.
Well, I mean, it's definitely about we're squeezing. We have a petrodollar here. Okay, that's what we live in the United States of America. The global currency is the US dollar, which is the petrodollar. That happened in the 70s after we went off the gold standard. Ever since that, our dollar has been debased gradually for the last 50 years. By saying that, you have other countries out there right now realizing how weak the dollar is. So if you're going to say the dollar, you're going to say you're going to say petrodollar. So you have Russia. Well, what is Russia doing? Well, they're basically moving to become more. They understand that they can get isolated right now, and they're okay with that, because what they want to do is they want to have more control on the global market. I believe they are going to become a client of China, basically, where they'll serve China in the way that China needs to be served. In the long run, who knows how that will play out? But right now, as far as this posturing and this war that was going to happen, no matter what what is said on media or within the government, this is something that has a lot of meanings behind it. A lot of things that people do not understand about Ukraine is that one thing I'll lead off with is Ukraine has a front border with Russia that is as big as the Great Plains. It's huge. It's wide and it's vast. You can see it for hundreds of miles, of course. By saying that, during World War II, that's how Germany invaded Russia, was through Ukraine. One of the passages ways they took, and it is something that Russia has always said that they will defend. Okay, so if NATO
makes it a very valuable strategic asset, like its western border is very easy to defend. And I forget what countries those are with, but the eastern border is easier to defend because of the terrain and there's just a few choke points. But the border they share with Russia is not very easy to defend. And that's why Russia really wants that territory, or one of the reasons they're saying.
Sure. And you look at the Soviet Union, you look at Russia's history. I mean, this is nothing new as far as the geography. This is stuff that we might just be, learning as Westerners, and especially the media will never, report this. As far as Ukraine itself, it's a very corrupt country. I mean, a lot of the corruption in the United States, financial, within our government, we've seen the corruption with within the administration right now, what happened under Trump. There's a lot of corruption being held up right there. There's a lot of corruption being leaked out right now with the biolabs that were created under, the last administration before Trump. You see basically nobody's reporting on the amount of human trafficking that actually goes through the Ukraine. There's a lot of things I see that the media is not reporting on. And this is not to discount anything that, loss of human life that is going on right now. As far as the footage and everything, I think it's suspect as far as war footage. But as far as what we're doing right now, this is a economy reset positioning. This is not about us hating Russia or, United States hating Russians like they're trying to say. This really doesn't have to do anything with, world leaders. This has to do with leverage as far as the value of the United States dollar. That's it. Because you can put everything together as we go into inflation, as our dollar gets debased, what distraction do we come up with next? The last 2 years, it was because of COVID. And if you look at the bond market before COVID hit, I mean, we were going towards this no matter what. I mean, at the end of Trump's, administration, we're heading this way no matter what. It was covered up by this COVID narrative and marketing plan that we had to live through. There's a lot of things that people really don't understand as far if you really want to try to understand what's going on with Russia and Ukraine on a global scale, just look at energy, look at the United States dollar and see who's going to quit participating in the United States dollar as much and who's going to transfer, maybe some of their debt in a different direction and even their energy resources and dependencies in different directions.
I agree with pretty much everything you just said. And I can remember back a lot of the conflicts that we've had, these little petty brush wars in the Mideast. I'm thinking of when we went into Libya and took out Gaddafi. And what comes to mind is we were getting along with them really well, right up till about 4 weeks in front of when we had to go in there. And the reason we went in is because Gaddafi said, hey, maybe I'm not going to trade oil in dollars anymore. Maybe I want to go in and trade it in oil. That was also one of the reasons Saddam Hussein had to go. Is he was going to start taking gold for oil instead of dollars. And now what I see happening is this invasion in Russia, or Russia going into Ukraine to secure oil and gas. As I'm 99% sure that's what it's all about, is they want a better strategic position to defend a border, and they want control all the untapped oil and gas that's under Ukraine. But what I see happening, and this was underreported, is Russia and China are talking about using a common cryptocurrency to trade oil in.
Mm-hmm.
And when I start thinking about, digital money tied to digital money, it wouldn't take anything for the Chinese to tie that to a social credit score. And, we're sitting here and being observers at a really fascinating time in history. So, on one hand, you have people going, oh, well, all these companies are refusing to do business with Russia because, they're invading Ukraine. But obviously, we're going to overlook all these other human rights violations in other parts of the world for now. I digress. But there's a lot of, I guess, virtue signaling going on of companies and people and celebrities saying, we stand with Ukraine, we support this, and we're cutting our ties to Russia. And I don't know if that's a good thing in the end. One of the things that Russia produces is a lot of fertilizer, and they're not going to be sending us any. We're already looking at, already feeling price shocks from production slowdowns because of COVID and supply chain disruptions. Now there's going to be less supply to go around. That's really going to drive input prices wild. But we're not going to see that this year. Like, we'll see those effects next year and the years after. So, there's a lag time in a lot of these economic effects. And I think that by the time that, we see some of these economic effects, like we were talking about earlier, that, we're sitting on the mother of all bubbles, of all economic bubbles right now. Like, the last big bubble popped in 2008. There was another one in 2014 that was artificial. but I don't think there's another bubble underneath of us like there was in 2014 to catch us when this one pops.
No, there's no more trap doors to escape and, kind of recreate false value, stacking false value on top of false value. And they know that. Let's go back to the digital currency. And that's what, you and I have talked about that before. People need to understand, cryptocurrency is not Bitcoin. Okay. Everybody get that straight. Cryptocurrency is a digital CBDC. It's a digital currency. It's like saying, give me all your cash. I'm going to give you a digital reading of that cash. Well, whenever they do that, that digital reading has an on off switch and can be taken out at a database anytime. You referred to, social credit score. Well, China's very good at doing that. Why is China, why we say it's communism and everything is the reason China does what they do with social credit scores is to the sake of their society, their culture, everything like that. Really, no, it's to control the self, the individual. And if you control the individual, then you basically make them the product of your currency. And if China's had massive successes doing that, and we lead the nation or we lead the world in technology in a lot of ways, the West does. And if we can recreate what they've done in China in a similar fashion, as far as a CBDC, a cryptocurrency, digital currency type thing, then what we can do is we can really, really turn the most powerful consumer nation in the world into a form of social credit scores that they do not understand. And they become more of the product than they even are right now. Whenever I say, well, what their product is, well, we consume a lot of stuff that we don't need. A lot of that stuff is, food that we don't need to eat, a lot of material things that we don't need to have in our lives, whatever. We're mass consumers. And if we can get to where we have a digital currency here in the United States, they're already starting to propose that. They're proposing that in England. Russia's looking in that as well. Once you have that digital currency and it's adopted by people's spending habits, then they become part of a hedge fund that they don't understand, and their consumption model changes, their freedoms change, the leverage against them increases tenfold. That leverage is being created and engineered because the dollar has been debased down to nothing. And so if we can circumvent that understanding within the general public, saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and airdrop you $2,000, and they're already doing that. Universal basic income is coming. They're already starting to test it. And senior citizens right now are getting hit. My father, he gets hit every day with, here's $2,700. Here's $2,700. Well, that's just the first phase of that digital currency. It's coming to the United States. And the more that people do not understand that, the worse it's going to be for us as far as individuals and as far as our society, because we don't have any true value anymore. We become the product, we are the consumer, and we get dictated to what we can spend that money on, that digital money on, and what we cannot. It is a form of surveillance, is a form of understanding who you are, is as far as where you go. It's a track and trace model. There's so many things that they can do with the digital currency than you can do now with the general currency of the United States dollar. It's a whole new ball game. It's a monetary reset. You said, well, why is Russia doing this? And they're talking about this digital dollar. Well, because the whole world is about to go through a monetary reset it's never seen before. And everybody's going to say, oh, no, it's not. Well, some people won't be affected by this because they have enough, I guess, leverage, equity, savings, enough assets. But for the general public, people meet like you and I and people that are impoverished, it's going to hit people tremendously hard in ways that they can't understand, because they don't understand the global aspect of the US dollar being debased as it is, and the petrodollar, how it's being manipulated with this war with Ukraine and Russia. And of course, China's going to definitely exploit that because they want to be the new, basically the digital yuan. They released that last year, I believe. And, that's where this is going. We live in a digital world. And so whenever people start looking at Bitcoin thinking it's a digital currency, it's not, it's digital property. And, and it's hard to understand that in the beginning. It does take some education. It takes some research and studying to understand what that means.
Right.
And, that's what I like to do with, ranchers, with you and, with Jason, with everybody that I've been talking with. Let's look at Bitcoin as its property first. Let's just quit thinking about currency. Let's just, compare it into property, and then we can start that conversation to where we can build some analogies and some, examples where we can both understand. And it's a good starting point to understand what's going on globally with the digital currency, and then what's going on actually globally within Bitcoin, its digital property.
So the question that I would have, so let's just say 6 months down the road, I've invested a bunch of money in Bitcoin. So I converted a lot of my asset now to Bitcoin, and sometime between now and fall, the big reset happens and they convert to digital currency. So how do I take that value that I have stored in Bitcoin and leverage it back in the real world? Like, and maybe that's a question we really can't answer because we don't know, we don't know what they're actually going to do with the economic system.
Yeah, it's not something you can answer fully because it is kind of predicting the future. There's companies out there already now. If you have a good size amount, let's say $50,000 worth of Bitcoin, and I'm just throwing it out there. Not everybody can have $50,000 worth of Bitcoin. I'm not saying that, but it's something that you can go to, and there are investment companies that will let you leverage your Bitcoin. Right now, Bitcoin is volatile because the manipulation. The way I look at that is, as time grows, as time moves forward, as the dollar gets more debased, as they manipulate a digital currency into the consumer model and they try to evaluate what that digital currency will allow people, Bitcoin will go up in value. It will go up in price because more people will go to Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is based on scarcity. There's only 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be mined. There's no more. It will never be mined again, and that's a long times away. So once we understand the true scarcity of Bitcoin and how people will funnel their assets, their liquidity, their value of their cow, the value of their land, so many different things into Bitcoin, that leverage of being able to be more self-sustaining without relying on that debt model that most people have to do, today, as far as ranchers, farmers, monocropping, feedlot ranchers, everybody, they're on a 12, 13-month window that they don't understand every year. They have to leverage debt. Well, let's turn that around and let's change that model into, I'm going to leverage Bitcoin for the long term. This is not a short-term game here. This is something that we're talking about legacy. This is about saving your ranch. This is about building your legacy. This is about giving you the power that actually has the same power as, let's say, land in the state of Texas in 1880, and you had that land. Well, the value of your cow was in that land because you had plenty of it and you trusted it. You had to monitor that land. You had to protect that land. What's the difference with Bitcoin? Bitcoin is just land in, the panhandle of Texas in 1880. And, many people created many long-term legacies just on that fact of that land. Well, we don't have that much land anymore that people can have access to right now. We know that. I mean, every individual in the United States realizes that. And so by saying that, say, okay, well, let's look at Bitcoin since it is property. It is a ledger that can't be changed. It will never be changed. It can't be manipulated. And if you have transactional proof of that Bitcoin, which means you've bought the Bitcoin, you self-custody that Bitcoin, you can prove that you own that Bitcoin. Right now, it's valued in dollars. We don't know what it'll be valued in the future. I don't even go there. What I do know is that Bitcoin can be leveraged just as well as land was leveraged in the 1880s. And if you don't want to talk about Texas, let's talk about 2 blocks in Manhattan. Whenever Manhattan was being constructed, let's say 2 blocks right off on Fifth Avenue. Those people never sold those 2 blocks. All they've done is built wealth on top of that 2 blocks. Well, look at Bitcoin. It's the same way. It's property that you can build on top of. And how do you build on top of it? Well, you leverage it in the way that they leveraged that land back in those days, whenever it was innovation. We don't know exactly the model. If we did, all of us would be billionaires right now, wouldn't we? And so, there's going to be those questions, because whenever I was in the software industry when I was younger and we were innovating, with even just transactional value with the internet, you couldn't spend money on the internet. It was a network that was protocol. It wasn't even really supposed to be decentralized. It was supposed to be decentralized, not centralized. We made it centralized. We had to build the transactional sequences, software applications. Banking had to build on top of the internet, just like we are building on top of Bitcoin right now. This is something that happens throughout transformation of technology, transformation of money, currency throughout time, in human history. This is where we are. We have to accept that. And you can either choose to innovate within it, to I don't really see it as being a risk anymore. I look at Bitcoin as mandatory right now, because where are you going to put your money right now? You can't, a lot of people can't afford the land. A lot of people don't trust the bank. A savings account, what is that? We don't even talk about that anymore. You're going to put it into bonds. You're going to put it into gold. You're going to put it into oil. Yeah, some people do, and they play the markets. A lot of ranchers, a lot of people that I deal with, my type of how I live my life. I'm not a gambler, man. What I do is I invest in something. I look at a long-term plan, and I figure out the percentages that I can afford to do that. And I look at it right now as I'm buying digital land that's going to give my family a heritage and legacy for much longer than I could right now with just buying, let's say, property or a couple of acres. And whenever that time comes, when people do flood into the Bitcoin protocol, and it is something that can't be confiscated if you know what true ownership is, because Bitcoin teaches you true ownership like our grandparents and our great-grandparents. That's how they had to live. They didn't have debt that they could manipulate and leverage against. And they did a little bit, but not as much as people think. My grandfather paid cash for land. He paid cash for anything he bought as far as food. And that teaches us true ownership again. If you buy Bitcoin and you basically self-custody, you know what true ownership is. And that's the learning curve. That's where people get frustrated. It's like, how do I do this? Because the manipulation is strong right now, just like it was during the dot-com boom and the dot-com bust. There's going to be people out there that gamble, people that do not educate themselves. And what I want to do is bridge that gap within the ranchers and the animal protein, suppliers, producers, is like, let's start from ground zero. Let's understand what Bitcoin truly is first. Let's forget all this cryptocurrency crap. I mean, I think the other day you got something sent to you, somebody's trying to manipulate you. It's amazing how much, the scams, the scandals, the corruptions, they're going to be rampant. And unless you're based with your knowledge and having an understanding on how you can truly leverage it and quit thinking about getting rich quick, nobody's going to get rich quick here. There's going to be 1% of people that do that. 99% of the people won't. But I remember when I was young, I had a chance to buy Apple at $5. And I talked myself out of it. If I'd have done that at that time, I'd be a multi-millionaire with the money that I was going to use to do that. I see that as the same right now with Bitcoin. I have a low time preference towards it. I'm in survival mode in a lot of ways.
What do you mean by low time preference?
Well, our attention spans are less than a goldfish right now. Okay.
True.
Seriously.
True.
I went to a freaking think tank in 2000. When was this? 2019, I believe, 18. It was up in Boston. And a lot of people know this, it's, in marketing technology, but our attention spans are less than 8 seconds at this point in time. And a goldfish has a longer attention span than that. So by saying that's instant gratification. That's a very high time preference form of living. It's like, I need that dopamine push right now. I need another one right now. I need that hit right now. That's high time preference of basically a desire that you really don't understand why you're desiring that dopamine. Well, it's because you're addicted to it. That creates a high time preferential form of living. You don't sit down, you don't think strategically anymore. You kind of instant gratification yourself into a consumption model that's not healthy for you. So a low time preference is, hey, we're going to take a step back here. We're going to look at things from all angles, and we're going to get more of a plan. My grandfather used to say, if you wanted to buy something, wait 3 days. And then after 3 days, you wanted to buy that thing, you probably put the time in to think about it. Go ahead and buy it. You're making a good decision. But how our marketing works, marketing is propaganda. I hope everybody understands that. Marketing is full on propaganda. And for us if you're having to spend that much money on something to market it, then it probably doesn't have that much value. So we're inundated with so much in our world, and we're on the screen so much every day, from our phones to our computers, that's all we do. We get inundated with this high time preference decision making. What we need to do is kind of take a step back and say, hey, I got a low time preference here. I'm going to think this out. I'm going to ask myself, why do I desire what I desire? By doing that, you're going to actually, it's a kind of a new superpower, because everybody is running around like a freaking chicken with their head cut off these days, instead of taking a step back and saying, man, why do I want this? Or why do I, what am I trying to do here? What does it mean to be rich? What does it mean to be wealthy? What does it mean to be secured? There's so many things that right now in our society we need to really look at. And, low time preference allows you to do that.
Okay, cool. So I guess the next thing I kind of want to tackle is, so I'm a guy with cows, and I'm going to send them to freezer camp and put them in the freezer. And then I want to sell that to somebody and get Bitcoin for it, and have self-custody of that Bitcoin. Can you walk me through kind of the process that I'd need to go through?
Sure. There's a lot of ways you can transact with Bitcoin. And that's always been the argument about Bitcoin is, oh, you can't use it to buy a cup of coffee. Well, you couldn't buy anything on the internet when the internet came around too, either. You couldn't swipe your credit card and go to Starbucks.
Yeah, you couldn't do crap before PayPal.
Yeah, it was frustrating. People wouldn't buy a pair of shoes. They didn't know where their credit card information was going, So this is nothing new. So as far as within the Beef Initiative, you can go to the Beef Initiative. I'll just use this. We're in partnership with Oshi, and Oshi's developing Oshi app is basically, it's a promotional application that allows you to transact in Bitcoin on the Lightning Network. Okay. So
what does that mean? Like, can you explain that to a 5-year-old?
Sure. Let's look at Bitcoin as the base layer protocol of that value of that transaction. Lightning lets you go in and reach into that Bitcoin, whatever that number is, grab it, and then exchange it over to this other peer-to-peer. It's just a highway saying, oh, yep, here we go here. We're here. It makes it a lot more fast, right?
Pipeline to get a Bitcoin from me to you.
Yeah, exactly. Let's say I bought a quarter of a cow from you for what, $800 right now? I don't know. Somewhere.
Sure, good number.
Good. Quarter of a cow. Okay, 800. Then you'll go to the Beef Initiative, right? And you'll have your Bitcoin wallet as an individual, and you'll have, I don't know, $1,000 of Bitcoin on your wallet. You'll see a beef box within the Beef Initiative, and we'll have the price. The beef box right now, let's just go to that because that's the price. They're around 150 to 200. We have 4 different beef boxes that you can purchase. So you buy a beef box for $189, $218. I just put 218. I'm going to send it to you, get a code. Boom. We switch it. You, the consumer, gets an email. The producer gets an email. We see that you and I did a peer-to-peer transaction of that value. If you do not, as far as the producer, want to keep all that money in Bitcoin, you can change it into fiat automatically. Okay. So you're not trapped into the Bitcoin world. But what you can do as far as saving that transaction that you usually have to pay to, like, say, MasterCard, credit cards, whoever transaction that you're using to make that, you don't have to pay that anymore as a rancher. And that's what I tell a lot of ranchers. It's okay. You don't want to get into Bitcoin right now. Let's let you save that 2.7% that you're going to pay that credit card company and let it sit there. Just don't do anything with it. Let a Bitcoiner let them use their Bitcoin in the way that they want to use it. Let them get the beef that they want to get. And let's bridge these two gaps, and let's build these on-ramps and decrease the friction of understanding how to transact. By doing that, I know you, Brian. I trust you. You trust me now. There's a form of trust that happens. And if your product is damn good, I'm happy, you're happy. You have your Bitcoin, I have my beef. And we went peer to peer. We went between me and you. Nobody else knows that transaction happened. We did it with property. That property was with Bitcoin. And that's the simple way to put it. As far as going deep into the technology that's involved with that, it's probably not the best discussion. Not everybody knows how to rebuild a transmission, but they still use it every day when they put on the gas pedal.
Right.
So, and that comes, that comes with adoption, that comes with trust, that comes with Bitcoiners knowing that you guys are out there selling your beef and that we can connect you guys. This will grow. This is just our first little phase of being able to transact into Bitcoin. Let's say that you and I really like each other. I love the beef. I love the box. I want to buy a full freaking cow from you. I'm going to call you up and say, Brian, I want a full cow. How much? And you're going to give me a price. And I'm saying, yes, I can send you Bitcoin like that right now. You're done. We're okay. And then, that is something that people don't understand. And if you want to convert that Bitcoin, let's say you're going to start saving 10% of any Bitcoin that you transact in within a cow, you're going to put that 10%, leaving in Bitcoin. You're going to say, I'm going to look at this next year, right before calving season or right before whatever season it is that you really look at your books. And you're going to look at that Bitcoin. For the last 12 years, that's gone up 100%.
Right.
Okay. By doing that, you think that is there anything in this world right now that is going to go up 100% in a year?
Cost of living.
Yep.
Price of everything else.
And the debasement of the dollar has gone down and down and down. Your Bitcoin's not going down. All it is going up in value, in US dollar value. So there's a store of value there that you've never had before. The only thing you can kind of come close to was the land in which our grandfathers used to own. Land used to maybe value that fast, but probably not. Over a period of time, it did, of course. From 1880 to year 2022, land is different. So that's a good valuation over 100 and something year period. Right now, you can look at Bitcoin is for, looking. That's what I like to do. Look, that's the sequence over a year that you have to go through is a 12 to 13 month sequence as far as being a rancher, as far as the books and understanding how you're going to plan your years. You've never had this tool before. You never had this store of value before. And we are early. We are this early.
Okay.
And as far as the ranchers moving forward within the beef initiative, what we plan to do is more ranchers that come on to the beef initiative and they say, yeah, I want to sell 2 beef boxes through the beef initiative. I think this is a good entry point for me. Well, in the long term, you'll be using the Yoshi app, right? And this is not that far away where you, the rancher, can say, I'm going to give you sats back if you buy, Bitcoin. Well, Oshi and you are going to have an agreement to where you're able to give that customer sats back. And whenever
sats?
you do that, that's what makes up a Bitcoin. Look at dollars and cents, right? You get $1 and you get cents. And that's the easiest way to kind of explain it. It's so pennies on the dollar.
Sats are to Bitcoins as pennies are to dollars, but it's not 100 to 1.
No, and I'll get beat up for this, but that's the first entry point. You can kind of understand that it's, it's safe to go there, but it gets pretty complicated. The sats will always go up in value, of course, because Bitcoin will go up in value. But, you think about that every time you get sats back, that's just a savings account. I'm getting sats back as a consumer. You're getting sats back as a rancher, and you've built that cost model yourself. You get to control that. And that's the beautiful thing about that. Once again, you're getting to put the value back into your cow. And, and that's what people will start understanding. And I understand that's kind of hard to grasp right now. And, that's what this whole year is going to be about, is that education and getting in front of this inflation, in front of this debasement, in front of the manipulation against the beef market industry.
I was just thinking how glad I am that we're doing a podcast and this isn't just you and me talking and it's not being recorded, because I know I'm going to have to go back and listen to this several times to really start wrapping my head around everything you're saying.
Sure. Well, let me give you an example. I'm working right now thanks to you guys, like you and Jason, I've had 5 ranchers contact me this past week saying, hey, I need to know a little bit more about Bitcoin. I need to understand it. Well, I'm in talks with a company that's very solid, and they're about privacy, security, and understanding Bitcoin from just getting started. What we're going to do is we're going to create a full-on education curriculum. And I've already, you and Jason talked to Matt a little bit, and he helped you guys out to kind of get started as far as the base layer of understanding. Well, we're going to knock that up a bit. And then within the next 60 days, it'll be a weekly podcast, and it's going to be geared directly to the ranchers, animal protein producers, anybody that wants to, of course. But, I'm starting with the ranchers. So
Okay,
there's education coming. Mm-hmm.
I got to know, have you figured out a way for people to be able to subscribe to you and use Bitcoin to pay for it?
As far as the podcast itself?
Yeah. I'd like to do that. I mean, I have a premium link in my bios and on Linktree. Mm-hmm. And I think there's
many ways to do it. The one that I like the best is how Adam Curry does it, with his podcasting 2.0. He uses Tallycoin now, and people can go and just tip him. And that's what you're going to get. You're going to get value for value exchange. And there's other things. There's a Sphinx chat that's out there. Podcasting is about to change big time. The applications and the technology to be able to stream sats as you're, like, if we were doing something right now, this is how you're going to see the future of podcasting. As we stream this podcasting, you can give sats as you are watching this podcast, and you and I are creating value. Somebody thinks that it is valuable. Okay, you're receiving sats for that podcast. What that means is value for value. If I say, hey, I'm not going to listen to this podcast anymore, I got what I wanted, I'm going to move on to another podcast, you don't have to worry about it. I don't have to pay you anymore, and I'm going to go pay somebody else something because I need a different subject to go along with. That sequence of events, that on-ramp to be able to make that transaction to send you those sats is getting very close, and a lot of people will start using it. There's a lot of people in the Bitcoin space that are moving in that direction. I'm looking at it. I don't know when I'll get there, but yeah, to answer your question, it's getting very close to being able to do to where you don't have to worry about Patreon. You don't have to worry about all this other stuff. You'll just get all your revenue in sats. And once again, what do you do with your Bitcoin when you get it? That's up to you. Nobody can tell you, and you don't have to tell anybody. It's your property. So somebody gave you property as you were streaming your intelligence to them. And this is what this is. Podcasting is intelligence. It's information.
Yep.
If somebody is streaming you sats up to the second, up to the minute, that value for value exchange, what does that do for most podcasts? That means that there is quality that is
a
built
strong
in.
Signal that you're providing a lot of value.
Exactly. And it's not something on YouTube where all these people are just streaming propaganda and all these LARPers out there and all these cucks out there that just suck people in and manipulate the content to get money through marketing and advertising as we see it today. Bitcoin will fix it.
Creators that just do outlandish shit just to get views. Shock value.
What's different from them and the media companies right now, mainstream media, same thing. So what I'm going to be is a based, human being. You as a based human being. I'm saying, hey man, I'm going to go listen to Brian on Sunday, and I'm going to stream him some sats because last week what he did, man, that improved my life. You're going to start getting that. We're going to start building quality and content again, to where me, the podcaster, you, the podcast, we better check ourselves, and we better really bring something that's valuable, instead of just, bumping our gums and saying, hopefully, get more followers. I don't look at it as followers. I look at it as value for value exchange. And I'm learning a lot about that. I'm doing a lot these days, and, I'm really paying attention to what Adam's doing, because that's how he lives his, his whole media career right now, is value for value.
Gonna have to check that out and check Tallycoin and see. So I'm still thinking about self-custody.
Mm-hmm.
So, you kind of alluded to it, and I'll just come out and say it. Like, I got solicited by an outfit on Twitter. They were like, hey, we're a crypto investing company. You can give us money. We'll buy crypto for you and invest it and give you the returns in exchange for a small percent. And that's not self-custody. That's letting somebody else control your asset and then tell you what they're doing with it. So tell me how self-custody of Bitcoin actually works.
self-custody of Bitcoin actually works. A lot of people use exchanges. There's 1,000 ways you can get Bitcoin. I don't try to talk to too many people about where to go to get your Bitcoin. That is something you need to individually find out. There's some very good companies out there that are not exchanges where you can just buy Bitcoin. You can you build out, you can do KYC, non-KYC, that's know your customer. So that's up to the individual. Once you've acquired your Bitcoin, what that means, it's somewhere, it's in a trust. A company has a trust built up, and that's usually the responsible companies do that. A lot of people, like certain exchanges, you really don't own that Bitcoin until you get it off the exchange. It's just like with gold. Most gold is a gold note.
Right.
It's not physical gold. Same with Bitcoin. And a lot of people are going to find that out whenever they, whatever happens here moving forward. If you don't own your Bitcoin, you never did. And so once you have that Bitcoin and you say, yeah, I bought, let's say, I don't know, $1,000 worth of Bitcoin. Okay. Well, I want to get that Bitcoin off. Well, what I've done before that is I've acquired a hardware wallet. Okay. And, I've developed a seed phrase. Seed phrase is your password to know, to memorize, and to have forever that nobody else knows.
Because if you forget it, that money, that value, and
it's gone.
Is gone forever.
Forever. And you remember I talked about ownership before. Bitcoin teaches you what true ownership is. And so once you develop that seed phrase and wherever you want to secure it, a lot of people secure it in a lot of different ways. Titanium plates, they hammer in seed phrases on pieces of metal. They do it their own way. This is where you get to own how you're going to remember a seed phrase. Usually, it's 24 words, whatever, seed phrase, words, whatever people want to say. Once you have that and you've set up your hardware wallet, okay, it's a device. Some of them look like a thumb drive. Some of them look like Frontier's coming out with something that looks like it's almost like an old flip top phone. There's all kinds of different ways you can get. Trezor has a good wallet. Frontier, Ledger, a lot of people use Ledger, but I'm not promoting anybody, and I'm not going to tell anybody my hardware wallet. In one-on-one discussions, we can have that. And with the ranchers, we will go over that, because that's where you give financial advice, and we just can't go there. But once you have that seed phrase, you go to you log online basically, and you say, I want to transfer to a different wallet. And so whenever you deal in transactions within Bitcoin, you get your barcode, you get your code that it'll give you, it'll generate for that transaction, and you send it just like you send any other barcode. You scan it, and boom, it shows up into your hardware wallet. Once it's in your hardware wallet and you have that seed phrase, you own that Bitcoin, and nobody can take that from you. That's why you always hear Bitcoiners saying, I lost my Bitcoin in a boating accident. Yeah. And what that means is that, I had it on a hardware wallet. I went boating and the boat sank, and I don't know where my Bitcoin is anymore. So it's my property. You can't tell me that it's not my property now, because I know the seed phrase. Nobody can ever take this. And we don't know where that's going as far as manipulation, as far as people, they confiscated gold. They confiscated my grandfather's gold in the 1930s. They can confiscate anything. If you do not understand Bitcoin and how to truly own it, and this is just the one-on-one here, this is just the entry point of doing that. And that's what we're going to bring to the ranchers, is the full-fledged how to do this step by step, to have the confidence. Just like you raise your calves, you're going to know your protocol basically of owning your Bitcoin. And once you have that, I guarantee you, once you've downloaded into your hardware wallet and you are confident of your seed phrase and your passcodes, everything that you have, you're going to feel different. You're going to feel empowered in a way that you haven't felt in a long time. And if that is not for you, to own your Bitcoin like that, true ownership of it, there's going to be companies out there. One right now that I'm in talks with is Unchained Capital. They will help you with multi-signature is what that means, is that you're pretty dang safe with your Bitcoin at this point in time. But to leave it out there on the internet, just floating around for manipulation, or that somebody else can acquire it from you, it's not the smartest thing to do. And, once you learn how to self custody, you look at Bitcoin in a different way.
Okay. And self custody is different than actually doing any mining, right?
Yeah, exactly. Mining is what you're doing is you're truly, gold mining, you're digging, you're digging for gold, right? Well, mining for Bitcoin is you're using the miners doing mathematical sequences. It's doing proof of work saying, hey, I can generate this Bitcoin. I'm following the protocols to generate this Bitcoin. And so there's a whole long of mathematical computations that goes into generating a Bitcoin by miners. And so once you've generated that Bitcoin with being a miner, a lot of miners they keep their Bitcoin, or they leverage their Bitcoin to, they sell it. It's up to the individual miner. You have mining companies, you have individual miners that, they'll never get rid of their Bitcoin. Once again, that is up to self-sovereign individuals to make that decision. Nobody has to tell them anything. Their intent is their own personal business, and nobody can get in the way of that. And you get a rancher, and this is the beautiful part of it that we're really going to start talking about is, you have the blow off, natural gas blow off that some ranchers have on their lands, and they're using that natural gas, they're generating electricity, they're mining Bitcoin, and they're not using anything except the land value itself, and they're putting that value of that Bitcoin into their cows. And that's happening right now as we speak, and it's going to start exploding. There's a lot of good states that are, I see it, Tennessee's doing this. People up in Wyoming are doing this, Texas, so Colorado a little bit. But you're going to start seeing a lot of ranchers probably looking into mining and saying, hey, how can I leverage my whatever it is? There's talks about fertilizer, natural fertilizer. There's ways to generate electricity now that people are looking at so they can mine Bitcoin.
Right.
It's self-sustaining. This is what we're going for. It's part of the regenerative agricultural ethos. It's a circular form of giving back, taking, creating energy, and giving it back. So once again, we're early in all this, but I believe that we're in such a good position now, especially with the beef initiative, especially with the ranchers that are coming on board. Once we get a little momentum on here, the form of innovation is going to multiply 10 times in a very quick period of time. I feel it already.
I agree. I think that the velocity of information is really driving a lot of change. Like ideas can spread like wildfire from one side of the globe to the other. And there's just such an awareness of what's going on. But at the same time, you have to look at that from a time preference standpoint. Like, what do they want us to see and what are they not showing us? What are they talking about? So we're not thinking about the other thing. The question that's on my mind is like, what's the timeline? Like, how long do we have before the economy completely implodes?
Yeah. If I knew that, man, boy, we'd be both a lot more well off right now. But I think, I started writing about everything back in September. The timeline that we're seeing right now, I think there's going to be, I've said it on many podcasts, there's going to be a short-term food supply shortage that comes up, and people will really get kind of desperate, and, there'll be a lot of chaos that's created this year. I see it happening, be it that it's a true food supply shortage or just the perception of it. People, running, hitting the banks, hitting the food store, the supermarkets, hoarding all they can. Something's going to happen here pretty quick. I see, I'm going to look at maybe mid to late April of we're going to have a very good indicator of what's about to happen for the rest of the year. I think that's the orchestration that is going on with the dollar, with inflation, with energy prices. Something's going to happen pretty soon. I don't think it's the big punch that a lot of us, that analyze and research things. I don't think that's it. I think it's going to be a kind of a test run, a beta test to see how we respond. And at that time, they'll probably bring a couple of arrows out of their quiver to say, okay, we'll test, the response. We'll test how people react. And, this, once again, people need to understand this is a monetary reset, and they're going to use everything they can to do it. And if you're not paying attention, you're going to your quality of life, your movement, your consumption model is going to change in ways that you're not prepared for. I would say this year is right now being aware of everything that is about to happen is about as secure as you can be as far as mindset and doing intentional things to educate yourself and to basically get ready for this monetary reset that's coming.
Okay.
But the next, I say this is a 10-year plan. This is a 2030 plan that they have going on. The more that they can capture our attention spans, which they do very well, because everybody definitely wakes up and they accept the programming into their lives. They accept the media, even though the media knows, they know the media lies to them. The media knows that they know that they're being lied to. They don't care because people keep on paying attention to it and they keep on discussing it. You know, the biggest marketing apparatus for the media companies is, you know what that is? The individual that still pays attention to it, because they create the narrative on, like right now, today is Sunday mornings in the United States narrative, in the country of the United States, every Sunday morning, they have all their media ready to go. They have a weekly marketing plan ready to go, and people pay attention to it. And it's a campaign that transpires over the next 7 days. And people think that a lot of this is not orchestration. A lot of it is orchestration. A lot of it is not. A lot of it happens, just because that's what happens. But as far as us, in the Bitcoin world, I haven't had a TV in several years. I don't watch any of that stuff. I can't anymore. If I need research and I need to really know what's going on, I have my outlets of information that I go to and I say, okay, this is valid. And as an individual, especially somebody who's doing what I'm doing, I can't watch that crap. All that crap is programming. And, they're going to, the more that we allow ourselves to be manipulated, the more that you become part of the lie. Because if you're discussing the lie, then you became the lie.
Right.
And I take responsibility not to do that anymore in my life. So if more of us do that, I don't really worry about timelines, because no matter what, the way I'm approaching my life is that if it happens, I'm going to be pretty based and pretty secured, because, it's not Armageddon that I'm talking about here. It's stealing personal freedom and personal space and personal assets. And I don't want that to happen anymore.
What's that line? Liberty dies, not to cries, but to cheers.
Something like that. Yeah. To cheers. Yeah.
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 This is how liberty dies, not to cry,
Oh, yeah.
not to outrage, but to people wildly cheering.
Yeah. And, I did a quote once, and it was out of St. Augustine's book of City of God. And it's called Let the Poor Court the Rich. And as the poor, praise the oligarchy that's going on right now in our society, they don't realize that they're praising for their own imprisonment in certain ways, be it, their consumption models that make them, unhealthy, nutritionally starved, or, content that they allow into their brains that they make daily and emotional decisions on.
Nutritionally starved, yet overweight and diabetic and metabolically unhealthy and nutritionally starved.
Yeah, pretty much. We're overfed and nutritionally starving right now. And you cannot contest that. I want somebody to come out and work with you for 3 days and have them say, oh, I'm tough. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
People don't understand that anymore, what it really takes to actually be in good health. I was talking to a doctor in Dallas, Dr. Mary Care, a couple of weeks ago. I went to Dallas to talk to people in the industry. And, she goes, what she does, she gets people out of the food ditch in which we live in. And she goes, one of the best things that we can do is I advise people to do a 48-hour bone broth fast. And just that 48 hours of doing that bone broth fast makes them lose part of the cloud that they're living in, as far as that nutritional starvation and that inflammation of the brain from eating all these processed foods. And what's the cure? Knowing your damn rancher and say, hey, rancher, I need some bones. I need, just having that connection with the pure animal protein, pure animal fats, that's regenerative, that doesn't have the chemicals in it.
I heard a good one. I like to say, shake the hand that feeds you. And there's
Yeah.
even I heard a better one yesterday.
Yeah.
Meet your meat.
Meet your meat. There you go.
Meet your meat.
Yeah. I mean, people get confused because it is really that simple, isn't it? It really is. It's like, okay, I'm going to spend this weekend and I'm in Texas. I'm going to find a rancher and I'm going to go meet him and I'm going to shake his hand and I'm going to say, will you teach me? And I want to help you. How can I help you? And he's going to say, well, let's be partners. How can we be partners? Well, I raise these calves to sell to families that want to give their family pure animal protein because I do it in a regenerative way. I do it to save lives. I do it because this is my heritage. This is what I love to do. Let's be partners. And people need to understand that you can do that. And part of the beef initiative is sending that signal, but is also saying, okay, you live in, a big city. You can't do that. I understand that. I respect that. And because I was that person as well, I couldn't leave the city a lot of times like I can now. But what we want to do is bridge that gap of communication and saying, hey, check out this rancher out here, in the Panhandle of Texas. Check out this rancher down in Central Texas. Check out this rancher out here in Colorado. There's places that we're going to with the beef initiative where these ranchers, they don't have an outlet to educate, to sell their product, and to develop a relationship with another human being that maybe, over Christmas, you're sending each other Christmas cards because it's going to be that valuable. And you're going to find ways to help each other out in this life instead of letting this centralized propaganda machine tell you everything that it's telling you right now, especially when it comes to the source of the seed of your nutrition. And the best source of the seed of nutrition is in the United States of America is the cow, regenerative raised cow.
I agree 100%. And I also want to say that like that whole shake the hand that feeds you.
Mm-hmm.
I love to throw that at a vegan.
Yeah.
Because they can't do it. Like
No,
they
can't.
literally can't do it. And a lot of vegetarians can't even do it.
No.
And don't mistake that I'm like talking bad about that. If that's how people choose to eat, fine.
No, that's fine.
Great.
It is.
Shake
but
the
understand the
hand that
enders.
Like get in touch with how your food is produced from raw material to your plate. And I guarantee you, if a lot of vegans understood what it took to put that meal on their plate and the implications of it, monocrop farming of soybeans, that's habitat destruction, fungicides, herbicides, that kills all soil life. Like at what point does a vegan draw the line between what animal is acceptable to kill for food and what animal is not?
Yeah. How about all the foxes, all the pheasant, all the field mice, all the badgers, all kinds across the United States, the millions of animals that are killed every year, monocropping, never brought up. Where's PETA? Come on. But, as far as vegans and vegetarians, that's okay. My life partner right now, she's a vegan. She has to be a vegan. Right. So, okay. By saying that, she has to be a vegan. Well, she can shake the hand that feeds because what do? You go to produce, you go to farmers market, who grew that vegetable. Most vegans and vegetarians across the United States, we couldn't feed all the vegans and vegetarians across the United States if we eliminated monocropping, could we? It's not possible.
No.
It would not be possible. And so and that's what they want. They don't want people to understand that because the way we're going with this fake commodity meat that they're creating right now, they're getting to where they can just, they can grow things in the lab now and we'll consume it because it tastes good. And that's what people don't truly understand. They know that they can make stuff people will say it tastes good. People line up for blocks to eat, Taco Bell because it tastes good. People eat all kinds of things. I always bring up Hot Pockets, Pizza Pockets, and chicken tendies because they taste good. They don't understand the true manipulation of that food because they can't shake the hand that feeds them.
And and you look at the ingredient labels on some of those things, like Hot Pockets. I used to eat Hot Pockets. Don't judge me. We're
me
all
too, man.
We're all on a
guilty.
journey.
I'm not any better than anybody else, man.
And I still eat McDonald's every once in a while too, even though I know it's like some of the worst of the worst commodity production system, over-engineered food that's not even really, it's delicious. I get it. We all get it. And that's what food science has done.
Mhm.
I think I talked about this with my friend Philip Meese a few episodes ago. Food science wants to take out all the best stuff that's in the food and replace it with the cheapest crap and make it taste the same.
Sure.
And it's we've taken things like everything that has a really flashy package. The flashier the package, the more claims it's making. You go and you look at that ingredient label. If that thing is more than 2 or 3 lines long, put that crap back on the shelf and go find a healthier alternative. I'm not saying don't enjoy McDonald's or chicken nuggets every once in a while. Like,
Not at all.
but you start looking at some of that stuff, you know, okay, yeah, so it says maybe the first ingredient is meat and then, whatever. Well, where'd that meat come from? I mean, what kind of meat are we talking about? Is it just random scraps?
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe the first ingredient is enriched flour. So what the hell is enriched flour? Well, it's wheat they took the germ off of, bleached it, got everything out of it, and then had to re-add nutrients back into it so it's actually good for you to eat. So where do those synthetic nutrients come from? Why are we putting this crap back in? And it causes, these things cause inflammation. They're not bioavailable. And the way I think we solve a lot of the health issues that we're facing is we quit eating this crap that the government has told us is food, has defined as food. Like just like over the last 2 years, they've changed the definition of what a vaccine is. Like we know they've
Yeah.
done that. Like they've admitted
Yeah.
they've done that. They've been caught red-handed doing that. They redefined what food is.
Yeah.
And like substances appearing and tasting as food, but may not actually provide any real human nourishment.
No. And that's what people rely on because we're trusting people. We want to trust. We want to feel secure. We do. And within how much our food industry has been corrupted by the global movement to have a one world food group basically is what they want. You know, and I bring this up all the time. I even brought it up with you as far as labeling. The FDA just to won a lawsuit to be able to have 1,000 new chemicals thrown into our food supply. Okay, each one of those individual chemicals is making a global corporation millions of dollars because you ingest it. That's the
Pot
only reason.
of money.
Yeah. And what I have to add, my father was a counselor and he used to bust my balls and he used to say, okay, you're bitching, you're moaning, you're having an issue, whatever it is. He would say, what part are you playing in this? You can complain all you want, but until you admit and take ownership, once again, we're talking ownership, till you can take ownership of what part you play in this, you don't have a right to really complain anymore. Once you've understood the situation and you can evaluate it and you can, understand that I need to eliminate this part I'm playing in it, things usually get better. So, for everybody listening, whenever we quit playing a part of this type of industry, and we have a solution, which that's what you do. And that's what I'm trying to help people understand that you do it, is that we have a solution. Okay, you have to change behavior. You have to change your mindset. You have to change your worldview a little bit, but that's a superpower these days because you're not living in this form of cognitive dissonance in this mass formation, that's going on in our world right now. Your life gets better whenever you understand that, if I quit playing a part in all of this corruption, I don't even have to worry about it anymore. But it's definitely good to know. And how it happens, it takes a long time to understand. The research I put in to get to where I am now with writing my first newsletter, thousands of hours, man. I've been doing this for 2 years. I just came to the public really in September of last year. So that's a short period of time that I've been involved with this. And it's crazy because a lot of people, started paying attention very quick. We can circumvent all of this, and we can do it with the understanding of, decentralization of our food. And as we're decentralizing our food, we're looking at decentralization of our monetary system. And they're working together. If we say that our dollar is debased, in the last 50 years, as much as it is, do you not think our food is debased just as bad? If our food is debased, what does it mean? It means exactly what you said: overly processed ingredients that have no nutritional value, but will keep on consuming it because it tastes good and it has a big marketing plan behind it. And the labeling means nothing to anybody anymore except the cartoon that they put on it.
Yep.
And how they're able to lie about it. You know, you don't even have to say, you can't even say, what is it, bioengineering now. You know, they don't have to say GMO anymore. They say bioengineering on the packages. That's coming out tenfold this year on all packages. They don't even say what bioengineering is. It's just a barcode.
Right.
So, you know, there's so many ways that the food industry is manipulating the general consumer that they have no clue and they don't understand, because they try to watch their weight. They try to get good, nutritious foods. It's not the consumer's fault. In a lot of ways, we're all guilty of it. Just like you said, McDonald's, you know, what was it? There's a place here called Taco Villa. I had a burrito from them the other day and I felt guilty. I was like, well, crap. Anyways, I won't be doing that again for a long time because I don't. But, you know, we're all guilty, but we don't have to play it 100% all the time. And it is a switch, and we don't have to automatically get into Bitcoin all at the same time. We just have to educate and take that small step of low time preference in a different direction, just pointing our compass somewhere else.
And you don't have to go all in on Bitcoin. Like say maybe, you know, you get $250, producer shares $250 off that box of meat, just throwing out round numbers. Let's just say, instead of putting all 250 of that in for cash flow, a lot of guys going to need some cash flow. So you could put a percentage in and always skim that percentage off and put it in Bitcoin as a safety net for later in case they do start confiscating dollars and reset everybody's bank account balance back to nothing, and do a shared digital central banking currency here. Like they're going to try it. It's inevitable, I think.
Oh yeah, they're going to try it. Definitely. They're going to be able to achieve it in a lot of ways within our economy and within our society. They'll be able to achieve a form of digital currency that many people are going to be okay being dependent on. You know, you have your social services communities and, you know, people that get a lot of federal money, a lot of states. There's going to be a lot of ways that they can introduce this digital currency that people will love because it's convenient. And they know that, you know, we don't have to participate in that. We can circumvent around it.
I think we'll have to participate in it to a certain extent to do business with, you know,
for sure,
do business with that part. Like I can see definitely like transportation, like, oh, you have enough money to buy your ticket. Your social credit score is high enough to buy a ticket, but it says you haven't been wearing AI cameras have seen you not wearing a mask and coughing in the last 24 hours. So we're not going to let you on the airplane.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, the cruise lines, you just made me think of something. Right when all this came and everybody's like, oh, I missed my cruise. And they say, hey, cruises are back. Well, there was already a software called Track and Trace. I think they probably renamed it by now, but, you know, you could go on a cruise again, but, you know, you have to give your firstborn's genetics before you can take that cruise. Right. You know, now you're in the system of track and trace, and they're going to know a lot more about you than they ever did because you opted into that system voluntarily. A lot of people don't realize they've opted into a system that's going to be able to know a lot more about them. I mean, HIPAA rules are gone. Think about that. You know, whenever they can make you claim if you've been vaccinated or not, isn't that a HIPAA law? Nah, not anymore. Nobody even pays attention to it.
Would that last 8 years? Thanks, Obama.
Maybe I don't know, you know, for all the, whatever it is, I don't know, but people really don't understand how many times they've opted into a system in the last 2 years that they didn't even understand what the true intent was.
That makes me think of a question. Do you know a way to help scrub some of your data off the internet and
quit paying a part of it right now, because it's not totally there, you know, as far as the overall system, it's not there. Just quit naming, you know, I don't know. I'm not on LinkedIn anymore. I used to be on LinkedIn. You can't really find me, but that's just a gradual process that you do, is quit participating with giving your data so freely. One, you know, whenever you go and buy something from a retail store, can you have your phone number? You know, it's always something. Would you like that receipt emailed to you? Hell no, I don't.
And you'll have my email address.
You'll print it out for me. But, there's just certain behavioral things that you can do where you don't have to participate as much. And I'm not very good because I think I have 2 W-2s on my record for the last 15 years. I mean, I've been doing my own thing for 15 years where, I do my taxes, I do everything legally 100%, but I'm just not part of the system anymore. I don't even know what my credit score is. I don't participate. But not everybody can say that. And I'm not telling everybody they should just jump in doing that. But I think the more that you can quit being dependent on people trying to get that personal data from you is the first step. It takes a while, but it can be done. And once again, why do you desire what you desire to exchange that information for something? Take a low time preference about it, take a step back and say, well, why do I really want this? And a lot of times it is so you can have a lifestyle, so you can be a rancher, whatever it is. Me being, a business, I'll have to, the corporation of the beef initiative, people will know that. So there's things that you can do and there's things you don't have control over. But the more that you control your own data, I mean, there's plenty of things out there that you can do to not participate. And it's not black and white. This is very gray for us. And I tell everybody right now, this first phase of the beef initiative is a 10-year program here, man. This is what we're doing. We're going to go along with them as they do things. We're doing things. We counterpunch, we counterpunch, we counterpunch. Food supply shortage comes. Guess what? We already have an apparatus set up where people can get beef. Okay, what happens after that? We don't know yet, but we think we know. What about whenever hopefully with the beef initiative, you want to own some cows, you get to own some cows. And, we're working and working with ranchers to see how we can do that. There's a lot of things that is going to, transpire each month, each year. And, within innovation in this transformation and this disruption, you just keep on moving forward.
You're one of the only people that's willing to talk about they see a coming food shortage, much less talk about it while the record button is pressed and there's a red light on the console. Like,
right.
I agree. Like, I think we're really, really heading for a food crunch. And whether it is, like we talked about earlier, whether it's something that's just blown out of proportion as public perception,
right,
or there's actually a food shortage, it kind of scares the hell out of me. Because you get these ultra dense, ultra huge metropolitan areas. Okay. And we can name a couple of them off: LA, the Bay Area, Chicago, New York City, well, basically the whole East Coast. They're 36 hours away from not having food. Like at most, they have a day and a half worth of food supply in that city, totally dependent on the trucks still running. Which reminds me to talk about Freedom Convoy. I guess we need to circle around to that if we have any time left. But it's not going to take very much of a shortage in any one commodity to trigger a panic. Like, what happens the first time a mom with her loaded up welfare card for food stamps can't go and get just the basics? She's going to go to another store. They're going to be out. She's going to go to another store. They're going to be out. She's going to post a video on social media that's going to go viral. And then we have food riots. Do you see it?
Oh yeah, I see it big time. And I'm not a fatalist here, man. I'm really not. But everything that I've put together throughout the last couple of years, it's going to happen. The timing, I can't say. And let's say this, once that happens, we don't know how we desensitized death during COVID. They successfully desensitized death. They made it to where it's like, oh, it's just a number on a screen. That was intentional. You go to freaking the news channels and they have the little counter. How many people died today? How many people had COVID? It was like the stock exchange. It just keeps on updating. So that desensitizes what our view of death is, what our view of health is, what our view of being sick is, what is real, what is not real. So that was the first phase of desensitizing us to certain things. Whenever they're desensitizing us on the nutritionally, bankruptcy of our food and of our people. I don't know how people will react, but I don't see it being very pleasurable. I see local communities bonding together, people that are ready to work with each other, that have a relationship and that care for each other, are really going to be the ones that really fight through this and really innovate in a way that nobody sees coming. And I know that's hard to say, it's a creep, right? It's a creep. It's gradually, and then suddenly, being a rancher out on your acreage, and you're all by yourself, and you're doing whatever, you're breaking ice, whatever it is, you're by yourself. You don't see all this as a rancher. You have so many different things that you're having to worry about. And it's so cool that we're being able to bridge this communications gap, this information gap, and this intelligence gap. I have no problem telling anybody that there's a food shortage coming along. And I believe, I think it was Adam on Joe Rogan, talked about food intelligence. And, him and I have been discussing this for a while now. I've been basically saying this since last September. There's something that's coming. And there's the grain. When I was in Dallas, I talked to somebody that's in the major industrial food complex. They have connections. They're not in it anymore. And they said, I'll tell you, he goes, I'll give you an example. He goes, Frito-Lay already bought up all the corn. And he we're not going to go down to numbers and quantities, but what he means is the global food corporations have already bought up the grain. Okay. What are they going to do with that grain? Either it be the consumption model of the human or the consumption model of the animal from livestock, as they do with our grains. Well, they're going to be able to destroy industries that they want to destroy, micro industries. They're going to be able to manipulate our food supplies in a way that people do not understand because of the overly dependency that we have on fertilizer, on those GMO grains, on monocropping. And they know that the time is up. They know they have to come along and create a new form of animal protein. How much of all that commodity grain they've basically bought up is going to go straight into that fake meat that people say, oh, it sucks, I would never eat that. You want to bet? When that's the only food they're feeding you in the supermarkets. Whenever Texas went down last year with the electricity shortage or outage, okay,
yeah, that was all the pictures. Shelves.
That was the only thing left the shelves. That day they took that picture. Guess what? Day later, none of that stuff was on the shelves. And people say, well, I'll never eat that burger. Well, yeah, but you'll eat a pizza pocket. You'll eat everything that they can put that fake commodity into, and you'll say it tastes good. It's not any different. Just because it's not the form of a hamburger, and they're not going to make this steak all right there in the beginning, they're going to ease it into the food.
Yep.
They're going to stack it on another fake commodity of your soy, of your canola, your rapeseed, of your fructose, everything that has no nutritional value. They're just going to stack a new fake commodity on top of that. And they're going to make billions upon billions of dollars off of it as they squeeze out the rancher.
And keep destroying the environment and telling us that cow farts are killing the atmosphere.
Exactly. And people believe it. And, a lot of people, are very impressionable. They're very idealistic when it comes to the climate and how things can be saved. A lot of people do not understand the answer has always been here. It was how our grandfathers treated the animal and the land, and how they used the animal as a land tool to regrow the soil and to make it strong.
And I think it's also worth noting right now that debunk the argument, well, we can't regeneratively graze the whole Great Plains. There are 4 times the amount of buffalo here than we have cows.
Yeah. Well, they say here in the Texas Panhandle, you don't have water. We don't have water to monocrop. That's what we don't have water. We have water to feed to water our livestock. Let's take a step back. Think about all the water that we won't waste, on that monocropping. We're the desert high plains here. It's the desert, dang it. It's like
shouldn't be pumping water from 600 feet deep to grow corn.
Exactly. Or even cotton in a lot of ways. A lot of, south of me is big cotton land. I mean, cotton is king down there, and so once that happens, you bet we can regrow this soil. It was there once. We had some of the prettiest grasslands in the world. And, it's true. And like you said, the bison were the land tools at the time. And there are many more bison than there are cattle right now. United States doesn't have that many cattle comparative. India has over 300 million. Russia has more cattle than the United States. We're third in line with 94 million cattle each year, give or take. So people don't understand the perspective of all this, and they're never going to hear it because they watch the programming.
So how do we deprogram ourselves?
One freaking lamb at a time, one cow at a time, one human at a time. It's all we can do. That's the perspective you have to go into this. You have to go in, you have to have those conversations. But once you get there and you develop communication apparatuses, this is what we're doing right now. We're talking about it. How many people are going to listen to this? I think I've had at least 5 to 10 people tell me, hey, I heard you on Brian's, podcast. And that's good.
That's
Redbeard,
cool.
yeah. And so this is how we do it. I mean, people need to quit thinking globally, need to quit thinking, let's create the strong individual again. Let's look at the strong individual. That strong individual can make a strong community. That community can be anything that strong individual wants it to be. Does it have to be digital across the world? Yeah, you can have many communities. But this is something, there's no end game here. This is a lifestyle change. This is a traditional stamp into our legacy of how we dealt with these times. Why are we so lucky and immune to having to fight like we're in war, like our grandparents did and our ancestors did? They live their lives on a survival mechanism mode. And why do we think that we're so much better? Why? Because we accept the lie that got us here? Nah, I can't do that. You can't do that. A lot of people are starting to realize I don't like this. I need truth in my life. I need a different form of empowerment. I need to, really look at myself in the mirror and say, man, I don't need entertainment. I'm going to become the damn entertainment. And once you can do that, and strong men lead that, strong individuals lead that, strong women, mothers lead that. So there's many people out there that are going to start coming along. They already are. And that's how we change it. That's how we do this. We can't look at this. What got us here is 1971. And Eric Butts said, we're going fence to fence. You're going big or you're going home.
Yep.
We're not going big anymore. We're going big within our community and with our individual strengths. That's where we're going big.
I think the order of the day is get small.
It is.
Just get
Why
small
not?
and diversify and shrink your social circle and take care of your community. We talk about food shortages coming. Okay. Like mine my major long-term food source stands in the pasture. I love beef. I can't eat it 24/7. Like as much as I think the carnivore diet is cool, and I know a lot of people have great luck on it, I'm not sure I'm meant to eat like that. I still like to eat some vegetables every once in a while, and anybody that knows me will argue with me about me liking vegetables. But
I came from a farming community. I eat vegetables still. I'm never going to say I don't eat vegetables.
But there's a need for that in the diet, and we're planning to put in a large garden. Like this next coming week, we're going to bring skid steer down, rip up a bunch of yard to plant corn. But that's a useful crop to grow because we can grind that cornmeal. It's a good way to store protein long-term through the year, but we're not using GMO seeds. Like I've planted 4 different varieties of heirloom red corn, like Bloody Butcher, Jimmy Red. And there's 2 more like Indian flint corn varieties that are colored with that reddish side. So that's what we're planting. That's like all heirloom stuff. And we've got plenty of seeds. Oh gosh, we've got seeds and seeds and seeds for days.
Awesome. Everybody wants them. They're going to start contacting you now for seeds.
Well, my seeds aren't maybe I'll trade some seeds for Bitcoin. How's that?
Value for value.
Yeah. I've got several pounds of corn seed or of corn kernels that I grew and saved for seed from the last 2 years of chaos gardening. I'll be happy to let those go for Bitcoin.
Peer to peer.
I think, growing food's hard. I mean, it's legitimately a hard thing. And
of course,
it's hard to plan, like, how much space do I need? How many feet of corn? How many feet of potatoes? How many feet of onions? How many tomato plants? And the best planning you give, you can plant the same thing 2 years in a row. In 1 year, you get a half a crop, and the next year you get 3 times. And growing food's hard. Planning it is hard. And food production, I think, has always been a problem for every form of government. And ensuring that the people can eat has always been a problem for government.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure how that ties into the larger discussion about, about Bitcoin and as a store of value, but it's there.
It is. And it's a mindset change that you have to go through, because I've been around the world a couple of times, and what you see on TV is not reality for the most part. As far as communities, I spent time in Asia. Most people grow their own food over in Asia. A lot of people do, especially the people that don't have that much money. That's what they do. And we
And
can't grow.
we're trained and programmed.
Right.
Look down on that way of life. Look at those poor subsistence
I know.
farmers.
Yeah.
Look at
Yeah.
those poor sharecroppers. If only we could lift them up out of poverty.
Of course. And that's what they're going to push right now. They're doing it in Africa. They're doing it in Asia. Bill Gates is going monocropping big time. Regenerative, whatever, monocropping. They're manipulating regenerative, agriculture as we speak. But yeah, I mean, we have to put that in perspective. My grandfather didn't grow all of his vegetables for the family. He did swap, he swapped things because he was part of the community. We can't take, 100%. This is not, a doomsday type prepping type of mentality. What this is a community mentality. What you do is you have a relationship, say, hey, Brian, what kind of genetics, what are you having this year within cattle? Okay, what are you growing with vegetables, man? You're growing some corn? Me too, man. I've got some blue corn I'm going to do. It's native, it's out of Oklahoma. I found it off of, a certain place. And so I say, hey, man, let's swap out this year. Let's keep each other in tune. What are we doing? And then we'll have a time to where we can exchange some stuff peer to peer. Just why do you have to go any further than that? It's a slow step into this change. Once again, it took us a long time to get here. It's not going to change overnight. What you have to do is, I call it the new luxury lifestyle. I mean, do you know what the anxiety that is lost by being able to say, I can eat for the next 2 years if I really had to? Let's just say for the next 6 months. Let's just say for the next 3 months. That gives you free time in your own mind and your emotional structure that you're going to go out there and you're going to get even more innovative. You're going to go down that rabbit hole of whatever it is that you're really wanting to pursue as an individual. It just happens. You can't spell it out. And all of us are different. We can't all just say this is how it is. It's not black and white. And it is hard to grow vegetables. It is hard to grow this stuff. But, once you get in that community, you learn so much so fast. All the information in the world for you to change your lifestyle into what you and I are talking about and what so many other people are talking about, decentralizing food. There is no lack of intelligence that you can achieve and a lifestyle change that you can actually pursue. It's there, and you can do it for free.
I'm thinking about over the last couple of days, I've been involved in one of those high time preference activities that we try not to be involved in. I was strolling Facebook, and I saw something that kind of struck me. And it was a fairly long and detailed post talking about spices, about how just 250 years ago, how hard some spices were to get, like things like nutmeg, vanilla, peppercorns, things we just absolutely totally take for granted.
Yeah.
Like, there is an embarrassment of wealth in everybody's spice cabinet. Like 250 years ago, the amount of spices that the average person has in their home would be an embarrassment of wealth to any king. Like, never in human history have we been able to eat food that's such well spiced or had access to this many spices. And I'm not talking about like the quote artificial and natural flavorings. I'm talking about like real spice, like, real cinnamon, real vanilla, real thyme, basil, those things. It's just, and peppercorns. It's just wild. Like, they covered the world looking for a better source of peppercorns. And that was one of the reasons the British Empire went sailing around the world, is they were looking for a place to grow peppercorns.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, wars were fought, empires were created through spices. And, if you really look historically, this is, a podcast series of itself when we just talk about spices and how we had, taste, something that tastes different like that was a form of wealth that you could deliver that taste. Your spice rack that you're talking about, that was unlimited wealth that a king, didn't have. If he did have it, he controlled a kingdom. He controlled the outlets of transportation for those spices from Asia from India, from Central Asia, which is India, all the way over to Europe, or, and especially into the States, from the South Americas, with, their peppers all the way to Asia. So many things happen within that spice market, historically, that is fascinating.
Yeah.
That's why I always say, look at the source of the seed. Where does the source of the seed come from? As far as that seed that you're consuming, where did it originate? What's the history of that seed? Nutmeg, what is the source of that pepper? Let's start looking at that, and once you start doing that, you become your own researcher, and it's very empowering to become your own researcher. Throw away your Google. Don't use Google. It's just an index. It's not the internet. And so, you can really find some fascinating stuff.
I use DuckDuckGo if I actually want to find something without bias. If I know the bias I'm looking for, I can use Google.
Yeah, I use DuckDuckGo too, and got pissed off at them the other day because they virtue signal about Ukraine and Russia now, and now they're going to start censoring too. So a lot of Bitcoiners are kind of pissed off about that, justifiably. So
it's inevitable. Like the greater the rate social adoption, adoption of a product or a service becomes, you're going to start picking up those, that incredibly vocal minority that's going to be offended about everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's social engineering at its finest, and that's what we're going through. The lives that have been perpetrated into academic America, into the media, into our children's lives, into the digital apparatuses in which we enslave ourselves to. It's on a vast scale, and a lot of people do not understand how the information is delivered, what the intent of that information is to be used for, and the longer agenda that they have to be able to basically make us dependent on all of that. I just like to lose a lot of the dependency, that I had in the past. And like I said, we're both guilty of it. This is not a judgment game, man. It has nothing to do with judging people. This has everything. It's like, hey, let's get empowered. This is kind of fun right now. We all probably should be having some fun. I mean, these are good conversations. These are good things that are actionable items that we can incorporate into our life, and we don't have to freaking ask for permission. And it's like getting back to the damn soil. I've been talking with, Cole with KNC. I've been talking to you. I'm talking with Jason, Rick Ranches. What we're doing here is we're doing a vertical integration of our food supply, starting with the soil, to the grass, to the cow, to the producer, to the processor, to the supplier, to the market access, to human health, which is basically an overall health initiative. And if you can look at those and how that breaks down, and those touch points of your food supply, you're going to be the healthiest person And if you can answer those questions of that vertical integration of a health initiative that we're creating here, then it involves, animal protein in the soil, in the grass. You look at that. You don't care what's going on with these chemical companies. You don't care that they shut off all shipments of, fertilizer from Russia months and months ago. You don't care about all this. You're aware of it, but you can say, well, I'm protected. I'm striving for that self-sovereignty. I'm being intentional about knowing this vertical integration of my food. And if we can all start doing that together, and we, have these little powwows, and we can say, hey, you brought up the vertical integration into processing. Well, what do you mean? Well, let's create, microprocessors across the state of Texas where they create a new form of supply and market access to people that they don't realize it's available. Once that market access of that protein is available to that community, guess what? They're going to start using it. They're especially going to start using it when the supermarket is charging you $40 for a freaking ribeye.
Because their supply chain has about 16 different handling points.
Yeah. Yeah. I always give people an example here in Texas. I say, there's a massive cattle drive happening in Texas right now. A lot of people don't even see it. Starts in Brazil. I think you and I talked about it, didn't we? And it makes its way up South America to Mexico, and then they eat a bunch of chemical grain in Mexico, and then that cattle gets shipped off into Texas, into a processing center in Texas, and then in Texas they say, "Hey, USDA prime beef." Well, that beef is not from the United States, and then all that wonderful beef that Texas is growing goes off to China and Europe to the highest bidder.
And the lie is like, and here's the lie that we've been sold for the last 3-4 years since people have become aware of the disparity between import export numbers in the beef market. The lie they've sold us is, oh, we're just importing lean trim. Just importing lean trim. I saw a week ago, like it was the first week of March, I saw a USDA report that came out that, yeah, we import a lot of lean trim, but that's only about 35% of what we import. The rest was, primals and choice cuts. So like, I think it's that bullshit line of, oh, we're just importing lean trim to make burgers. It's not happening. Like,
no,
a lot of these lies about, our food system are being laid bare, and they're there. Like, if you do the research, you can go find some of these things that are coming to light. But again, like, you're not seeing it being covered on the media because they don't care, and it's not a sensational enough story to get clicks and views.
Sure.
You can't convert it. It's difficult to convert food awareness and food intelligence into the high time preference audience, I guess. Like,
it is, and I think early on I said, man, I think about 10% of the people might be reading this, 2% of people are going to act on it. And that's probably the case, and you look at how revolutions start, because this is a revolution of our food supply. This is a disruption of our food supply. I'll be the first 3%. To admit it. 3%.
Takes 3% to lead a revolution.
3%. Yep. There you go.
Got it.
A lot of people don't realize that. So I'm not talking to everybody out there. And if you don't want to listen to me, please go eat your Hot Pockets and your chicken tendies, man. There's plenty of them. Unless you buy up, for short-term food supply shortage, that might happen. But, if you want to keep on consuming that stuff, that's your personal choice. Be informed about it at least. And if that's the choice you make, then go for it. I'm not going to make that choice anymore as an individual, as a father, to my son. I'm not going to let him eat that way ever again in his life. And he's going to teach people, and he's, the people that he's going to teach people. Every rancher that comes to me and say, hey, this is my protocol, this is my genetics, this is the region of the country I'm doing this, this is what we face, this is what we produce, more people are going to start hearing every rancher story. And that's what's going to be so cool about this. The education and the amount of information that we're going to be able to provide this year, that I think has not really hit the masses in a way that's going to hit this year, will have an impact on our society this year.
For sure. And we're kind of running short on time.
Yeah, it is. It flowed. It flowed like water. That's what we're trying to do here.
Well, that's what happens when we when we chat for 15 minutes, when my idiot self hasn't pushed the record button.
I do that too on my podcast, man. Shut up and hit record at least, and you can edit it out, but I'm the worst at it. So, but we're making progress, man. And we said, what was it, a month that we said 1 month we would talk?
It was exactly a month ago, and I just looked, and you were 52, so I can probably release this as episode 56 and just kind of get them synced up. So I'm gonna get this one turned around pretty quick.
That's awesome, man. Let's do this in a month.
Another one?
Why not? Because we have the conference coming up, the Beef Initiative Conference in Kerrville. We're going to start talking about the conference that we're going to have in Colorado. And so I think it's time to get people, kind of engaged.
Talk about them now. Let's talk about them.
Well,
take us on out, and offline, you and I can discuss. We can get that one set up again.
Yeah, we're going to have the first annual Beef Initiative Conference in Kerrville, Texas on April 23rd. It's on my site. It's on my Twitter. I'm sharing the information. We're going to really start pumping it out here pretty quick as far as getting a lot more awareness to it. This conference is not, to try to it's what it is. It's going to have a call to action at the end of it. It's going to be total education. We have all kinds of great speakers
Not a sales
that are,
pitch.
what's that?
Not a sales pitch.
It's not a sales pitch, man. And people have to understand everything that I do, this is out of my pocket. I'm not, I'm not shilling. I'm not trying to, get donations at this point. I haven't done anything. It's not about money right now. This is about education. This is about bridging this gap of education from the consumer over to the rancher. And there's so much that we need to get in front of everybody. And that's why I'm using these conferences, to where we can have some really base speakers from medical to nutrition to ranching to Bitcoin, just general societal things that everybody's kind of confused about. That's what this is about. This is an education year. This is a production of education that everybody is probably yearning for right now and that they need. And so I'm really trying to formulate that message, that vertical integration that we talked about. We're going to talk about those touch points at these conferences. In Colorado, we're going to have it, out there in Crawford at Jason's, and off and on, there's an area, a region there that will be able to do the conference, and it'll be more of a hands-on saying, hey, this is how it's done, and you're going to be there. And there's going to be a lot of people that learn a lot of things about regenerative agriculture when they come to the Colorado conference. And then, so those are what we're planning right now. It's hard work. I've never put on conferences before, so I'm learning a lot. But we're gonna move forward. If freaking 15 people show up in Kerrville, Texas, I'll be extremely happy. If 300 show up, I'll be ecstatic. If 100, it doesn't matter. It's not a numbers game right now. This is about education and getting the information to people that need it and that want it, and educating ranchers, of course, on Bitcoin, and then educating the consumer on pure animal protein.
Right on. Okay, so that is April 23rd.
Yes,
When's
Kerrville,
Crawford?
Texas.
Crawford, Colorado. When's that one?
That's July, the third weekend of July, whatever that falls on. And that could change, but I don't think it's going to.
Okay. Where can people go to find out more?
Go right now, go to the Beef Initiative, beefinitiative.com. And it's right when you go to beefinitiative.com. And then, of course, on my Twitter is @ModernTMan. Those are the best two places to come to right now. And then as far as the Beef Initiative Twitter handle is @Beef Initiative.
Okay. I'll make sure I get those in the show notes.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian.
Anything we forgot?
No, I think we covered a lot.
All right. Well, I'm going to go enjoy the rest of my Sunday. And I guess everybody have a great week.
Appreciate you, Brian. We'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Yep. See ya.